Headlines, in a way, are what mislead you because bad news is a headline, and gradual improvement is not. Money has no utility to me beyond a certain point. Bill Gates' digital technology has several features that can make it much easier for teachers to pay special attention to all their students. Exposure from a young age to the realities of the world is a super big thing. Security is, I would say, our top priority because, for all the exciting things you will be able to do with computers, organizing your lives, staying in touch with people, being creative, if we don't solve these security problems, then people will hold back. Bill Gates, whether it's Google or Apple or a free software, we've got some fantastic competitors, and it keeps us on our toes. If your culture doesn't like geeks, you are in real trouble. Governments will always play a huge part in solving big problems. They set public policy and are uniquely able to provide the resources to make sure solutions reach everyone who needs them. They also fund basic research, which is a crucial component of the innovation that improves life for everyone. There are more people dying of malaria than any specific cancer. The future of advertising is the internet. Expectations are a form of first-class truth. If people believe it, it's true. Bill Gates, I'm never fully satisfied with any Microsoft product. By the time we see that climate change is really bad, your ability to fix it is extremely limited. The carbon gets up there, but the heating effect is delayed, and then the effect of that heat on the species and ecosystem is delayed. That means that even when you turn virtuous, things are actually going to get worse for quite a while. Bill Gates, I think the thing we see is that as people are using video games more, they tend to watch passive TV a bit less, and so using the PC for the internet, playing video games, is starting to cut into the rather unbelievable amount of time people spend watching TV. If GM had kept up with technology like the computer industry has, we would all be driving $25 cars that got 1000 mpg. By improving health, empowering women, population growth comes down. We've got to put a lot of money into changing behavior. I have been struck again and again by how important measurement is to improving the human condition. The intersection of law, politics, and technology is going to force a lot of good thinking. It's possible you can never know that the universe exists only for me. If so, it's sure going well for me. I must admit, teaching's hard. You need different skills, positive reinforcement, keeping students from getting bored, commanding their attention in a certain way. Living on $6 a day means you have a refrigerator, a TV issue, a cell phone. Your children can go to school. That's not possible on $1 a day. Bill Gates. I believe the returns on investment in the poor are just as exciting as successes achieved in the business arena, and they are even more meaningful. Bill Gates. For a highly motivated learner, it's not like knowledge is secret, and somehow the internet made it not secret. It just made knowledge easy to find. If you're a motivated enough learner, books are pretty good. Connectivity enables transparency for better government, education, and health. If people want capital gains taxed more like the highest rate on income, that's a good discussion. Maybe that's the way to help close the deficit. With Windows 8, Microsoft is trying to gain market share in what has been dominated by the iPad-type device. But a lot of those users are frustrated. They can't type. They can't create documents. This whole phenomenon of the computer in a library is an amazing thing. 90% of the cases of polio are in security vulnerable areas. If I'd had some set idea of a finish line, don't you think I would have crossed it years ago? In poor countries, we still need better ways to measure the effectiveness of the many government workers providing health services. They are the crucial link bringing tools, such as vaccines, and education to the people who need them most. How well trained are they? Are they showing up to work? Bill Gates. We are not even close to finishing the basic dream of what the PC can be. Polio's pretty special, because once you get an eradication, you no longer have to spend money on it. It's just there as a gift for the rest of time. Technology is unlocking the innate compassion we have for our fellow human beings. Corruption is one of the most common reasons I hear in views that criticize aid. I'm a geek. Contrary to popular belief, I don't spend a whole lot of time following soccer. But as I have traveled around the world to better understand global development and health, I've learned that soccer is truly universal. No matter where I go, that's what kids are playing. That's what people are talking about. Bill Gates. The way to be successful in the software world is to come up with breakthrough software. And so whether it's Microsoft Office or Windows, it's pushing that forward. New ideas, surprising the marketplace. So good engineering and good business are one and the same. Bill Gates. In this business, by the time you realize you're in trouble, it's too late to save yourself. Unless you're running scared all the time, you're gone. There's 20 companies that I have investments in. Some batteries, some solar thermal, one big nuclear thing. We need hundreds and hundreds of companies like that, so that in a 20-year time frame we really are starting to change the energy infrastructure. Bill Gates. Paper is no longer a big part of my day. I get 90% of my news online. And when I go to a meeting and want to jot things down, I bring my tablet PC. It's fully synchronized with my office machine, so I have all the files I need. It also has a note-taking piece of software called OneNote, so all my notes are in digital form. Bill Gates. I don't think there's anything unique about human intelligence. In 9th grade, I came up with a new form of rebellion. I hadn't been getting good grades, but I decided to get all A's without taking a book home. I didn't go to math class because I knew enough and had read ahead, and I placed within the top 10 people in the nation on an aptitude exam. Services architecture. What does that mean? It means taking components of software and systems and having them be self-describing so that you can name them, ask them what their capabilities are, and communicate with them using a standard protocol. You may have heard of Black Friday and Cyber Monday. There's another day you might want to know about: Giving Tuesday. The idea is pretty straightforward. On the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, shoppers take a break from their gift buying and donate what they can to charity. I've always been interested in science. One of my favorite books is James Watson's Molecular Biology of the Gene. Software innovation, like almost every other kind of innovation, requires the ability to collaborate and share ideas with other people, and to sit down and talk with customers and get their feedback and understand their needs. I like the idea of putting your Christmas wish list up and letting people share it. 2 out of every 5 people on Earth today owe their lives to the higher crop outputs that fertilizer has made possible. Innovation is moving at a scarily fast pace. We should all grow our own food and do our own waste processing. We really should. Being flooded with information doesn't mean we have the right information, or that we're in touch with the right people. When a country has the skill and self-confidence to take action against its biggest problems, it makes outsiders eager to be a part of it. There are people who don't like capitalism, and people who don't like PCs. But there's no one who likes the PC who doesn't like Microsoft. The PC has improved the world in just about every area you can think of. Amazing developments in communications, collaboration and efficiencies, new kinds of entertainment, and social media, access to information, and the ability to give a voice people who would never have been heard. Bill Gates. Innovations that are guided by smallholder farmers, adapted to local circumstances, and sustainable for the economy and environment will be necessary to ensure food security in the future. Bill Gates. There certainly is a case to be made that taxes should be more progressive. Like my friend Warren Buffett, I feel particularly lucky to do something every day that I love to do. He calls it tap dancing to work. The moral systems of religion, I think, are super important. No one person controls Microsoft. The board and the shareholders decide whether they want to have me as CEO. Bill Gates. Whether I'm at the office, at home, or on the road, I always have a stack of books I'm looking forward to reading. The best teacher is very interactive. The malaria parasite has been killing children and sapping the strength of whole populations for tens of thousands of years. It is impossible to calculate the harm malaria has done to the world. Helping convene global stakeholders to establish a set of measurable, actionable and consensus-built goals focused on extreme poverty is invaluable. I don't think there is any philosophy that suggests having polio is a good thing. The only thing I understand deeply, because in my teens, I was thinking about it, and every year of my life is software. So I'll never be hands-on on anything except software. When you revolutionize education, you're taking the very mechanism of how people be smarter and do new things, and you're priming the pump for so many incredible things. Steve Jobs' ability to focus in on a few things that count, get people who get user interface right, and market things as revolutionary are amazing things. Today, we're very dependent on cheap energy. We just take it for granted. All the things you have in the house, the way industry works. I'm an investor in a number of biotech companies, partly because of my incredible enthusiasm for the great innovations they will bring. I know there's a farmer out there somewhere who never wants a PC, and that's fine with me. The misconception that aid falls straight into the hands of dictators largely stems from the Cold War era. Okay, I have a nickname. My family calls me Trey because I'm William III. My dad has the same name, which is always confusing because my dad is well known, and I'm also known. Bill Gates. I've been very lucky, and therefore I owe it to try and reduce the inequity in the world. And that's kind of a religious belief. I mean, it's at least a moral belief. People everywhere love Windows. We are in the throes of a transition where every publication has to think of their digital strategy. Eventually all companies are replaced. I agree with people like Richard Dawkins that mankind felt the need for creation myths before we really began to understand disease and the weather and things like that. We sought false explanations for them. Now science has filled in some of the realm. Not all that religion used to fill. Bill Gates. People always fear change. People feared electricity when it was invented, didn't they? People feared coal. They feared gas-powered engines. There will always be ignorance, and ignorance leads to fear. But with time, people will come to accept their silicon masters. Bill Gates. Treatment without prevention is simply unsustainable. Everyone needs a coach. It doesn't matter whether you're a basketball player, a tennis player, a gymnast, or a bridge player. I never took a day off in my 20s. Not one. And I'm still fanatical. But now I'm a little less fanatical. I believe that if you show people the problems, and you show them the solutions, they will be moved to act. I really had a lot of dreams when I was a kid, and I think a great deal of that grew out of the fact that I had a chance to read a lot. Historically, privacy was almost implicit, because it was hard to find and gather information. But in the digital world, whether it's digital cameras or satellites, or just what you click on, we need to have more explicit rules, not just for governments, but for private companies. Bill Gates. I believe in innovation. And that the way you get innovation is you fund research, and you learn the basic facts. When I was growing up, my parents were almost involved in various volunteer things. My dad was head of Planned Parenthood, and it was very controversial to be involved with that. Legacy is a stupid thing. I don't want a legacy. We make the future sustainable when we invest in the poor, not when we insist on their suffering. In business, the idea of measuring what you are doing, picking the measurements that count, like customer satisfaction and performance, you thrive on that. Globalization has made copper and other minerals more valuable, and Ghana and Kenya have recently discovered mineral resources. Capitalism has worked very well. Anyone who wants to move to North Korea is welcome. Bitcoin is mostly about anonymous transactions, and I don't think over time that's a good way to go. I'm a huge believer in digital currency, but doing it on an anonymous basis, I think that leads to some abuses. So I'm not involved in Bitcoin. Bill Gates, nuclear energy, in terms of an overall safety record, is better than other energy. I think it makes sense to believe in God. But exactly what decision in your life you make differently because of it, I don't know. To create a new standard, it takes something that's not just a little bit different. It takes something that's really new and really captures people's imagination. And the Macintosh, of all the machines I've ever seen, is the only one that meets that standard. Bill Gates. Just in terms of allocation of time resources, religion is not very efficient. There's a lot more I could be doing on a Sunday morning. Bill Gates. Success is a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose. Bill Gates. The first rule of any technology used in a business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. The second is that automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. Bill Gates. It's fine to celebrate success, but it is more important to heed the lessons of failure. If you can't make it good, at least make it look good. Your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. Bill Gates. Discrimination has a lot of layers that make it tough for minorities to get a leg up. The internet is becoming the town square for the global village of tomorrow. We all need people who will give us feedback. That's how we improve. We always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. Don't let yourself be lulled into inaction. Bill Gates. There are websites that any government wants to block. The truth about the internet is that it's extremely hard to block anything. Extremely hard. You'll never get perfect blocking. Bill Gates. Information technology and business are becoming inextricably interwoven. I don't think anybody can talk meaningfully about one without the talking about the other. Technology is just a tool in terms of getting the kids working together and motivating them. The teacher is the most important. As we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others. I think it's fair to say that personal computers have become the most empowering tool we've ever created. They're tools of communication. They're tools of creativity. And they can be shaped by their user. Bill Gates. In the long run, your human capital is your main base of competition. Your leading indicator of where you're going to be 20 years from now is how well you're doing in your education system. Microsoft is not about greed. It's about innovation and fairness. Intellectual property has the shelf life of a banana. If you go back to 1800, everybody was poor. I mean everybody. The Industrial Revolution kicked in, and a lot of countries benefited. But by no means everyone. Climate change is a terrible problem, and it absolutely needs to be solved. It deserves to be a huge priority. Drones overall will be more impactful than I think people recognize. In positive ways to help society. The advance of technology is based on making it fit in so that you don't really even notice it, so it's part of everyday life. Bill Gates. Software is a great combination between artistry and engineering. I'm a great believer that any tool that enhances communication has profound effects in terms of how people can learn from each other, and how they can achieve the kind of freedoms that they're interested in. Bill Gates. If you're a person struggling to eat and stay healthy, you might have heard about Michael Jordan or Muhammad Ali, but you'll never have heard of Bill Gates. Bill Gates, understanding science and pushing the boundaries of science is what makes me immensely satisfied. Really advanced civilization is based on advances in energy. The most amazing philanthropists are people who are actually making a significant sacrifice. It's the poorer people in tropical zones who will get really hit by climate change, as well as some ecosystems, which nobody wants to see disappear. Almost every way we make electricity today, except for the emerging renewables and nuclear, puts out CO2. And so, what we're going to have to do at a global scale is create a new system. And so, we need energy miracles. Flying cars are not a very efficient way to move things from one point to another. If you have 50 different plug types, appliances wouldn't be available and would be very expensive. But once an electric outlet becomes standardized, many companies can design appliances, and competition ensues, creating variety and better prices for consumers. Bill Gates. Eventually we'll be able to sequence the human genome and replicate how nature did intelligence in a carbon-based system. I don't think there's a boundary between digital media and print media. Every magazine is doing an online version. AIDS itself is subject to incredible stigma. When Paul Allen and I started Microsoft over 30 years ago, we had big dreams about software. We had dreams about the impact it could have. The difference between a stranger sending you a message that you might be interested in at a very low volume level, no repetition, just sending it to very few people, and that being done as spam. Those things get close enough that you want to be careful never to filter out something that's legitimate. Research shows that there is only half as much variation in student achievement between schools as there is among classrooms in the same school. If you want your child to get the best education possible, it is actually more important to get him assigned to a great teacher than to a great school. Windows is probably the most important product in the entire PC industry. Everything we do in terms of supporting touch, new hardware, accessibility, has incredible impact. Bill Gates. The internet is the easiest thing to get into. To be an internet retailer, you just get that URL. China adopted a capitalist system in the 1980s, and they went from a 60% poverty rate to 10%. Bill Gates. One of the statistics that always amazes me is the approval of the Chinese government not elected is over 80%. The approval of the US government fully elected is 19%. Well, we elected these people, and they didn't elect those people. Isn't it supposed to be different? Aren't we supposed to like the people that we elected? Bill Gates. In the old generation, if one kid bought a PlayStation 2 and the other kid bought an Xbox, at his house you played PlayStation. At your house, you played Xbox. Now that it's online, all those early buyers who you want to play with, they've got their reputation online of who they are and how good they are at these games. Bill Gates. Certainly there's a phenomenon around open source. You know, free software will be a vibrant area. There will be a lot of neat things that get done there. The potential financial reward for building the next Windows is so great that there will never be a shortage of new technologies seeking to challenge it. When Ford sells a car, a dealer isn't allowed to take out the engine and put a different one in. When a newsstand sells the Washington Post, no one can go to the newsstand and pay them to rip out the classified section and put their own classified section in. If they could, they would do so. You're never going to get the amount of CO2 emitted to go down unless you deal with the one magic metric, which is CO2 per kilowatt hour. Energy innovation is not a nationalistic game. The nuclear approach I'm involved in is called a traveling wave reactor, which uses waste uranium for fuel. There's a lot of things that have to go right for that dream to come true. Many decades of building demo plants, proving the economics are right. But if it does, you could have cheaper energy with no CO2 emissions. Now everyone takes it for granted that you can look up movie reviews, track locations, and order stuff online. I wish there was a way we could take it away from people for a day, so they could remember what it was like without it. What destroys more self-confidence than any other educational thing in America is being assigned to some remedial math when you get into some college, and then it's not taught very well and you end up with this sense of, hey, I can't really figure those things out. If all my bridge coach ever told me was that I was satisfactory, I would have no hope of ever getting better. How would I know who was the best? How would I know what I was doing differently? You have to have a certain realism that government is a pretty blunt instrument, and without the constant attention of highly qualified people with the right metrics, it will fall into not doing things very well. If you found some way to educate yourself about engineering, stocks or whatever it is, good employers will have some type of exam or interview and see a sample of your work. The kids are a big part of my schedule. The most impactful dollars that Australia can spend are actually what goes to help the poorest. If you're low income in the United States, you have a higher chance of going to jail than you do of getting a 4-year degree, and that doesn't seem entirely fair. Bill Gates. Americans move more than 10 times over the course of a lifetime. Like almost everyone who uses email, I receive a ton of spam every day. Much of it offers to help me get out of debt or get rich quick. It would be funny if it weren't so exciting. Digital reading will completely take over. It's lightweight and it's fantastic for sharing. Over time it will take over. I have an excellent memory, a most excellent memory. I'm going to retain a lot of Microsoft stock. India has over 20% of the kids born in the world. And they move around a lot. Some very poor countries run great vaccination systems, and some richer ones run terrible programs. I have seen firsthand that agricultural science has enormous potential to increase the yields of small farmers and lift them out of hunger and poverty. The worst pandemic in modern history was the Spanish flu of 1918, which killed tens of millions of people. Today, with how interconnected the world is, it would spread faster. Africa is on the rise. I'm not big on to-do lists. Instead I use email and desktop folders in my online calendar. So when I walk up to my desk I can focus on the emails I've flagged and check the folders that are monitoring particular projects and particular blogs. Investing for the poor requires participation from the entire community. I'm sorry that we have to have a Washington presence. We thrived during our first 16 years. Without any of this, I never made a political visit to Washington. And we had no people here. It wasn't on our radar screen. We were just making great software. Bill Gates. The tool that's most associated with the recent progress against malaria is the long-lasting bed net. Bed nets are a fantastic innovation. But we can do even better. We can invent new ways to control the mosquitoes that carry the malaria parasite. Bill Gates. Unfortunately, the highly curious student is a small percentage of the kids. Until we're educating every kid in a fantastic way, until every inner city is cleaned up, there is no shortage of things to do. I spend a lot of time reading in inner city low-income communities of color. There's such a high correlation in terms of educational quality and success. It's easier to add things onto a PC than it's ever been before. It's one click, and boom, it comes down. The outpouring of support from millions of people in the immediate aftermath of the earthquake in Haiti has been impressive. What's amazing is, if young people understood how doing well in school makes the rest of their life so much interesting, they would be more motivated. It's so far away in time that they can't appreciate what it means for their whole life. Bill Gates. People are going to buy cheap fertilizer so they can grow enough crops to feed themselves, which will be increasingly difficult with climate change. I can understand wanting to have millions of dollars. There's a certain freedom, meaningful freedom that comes with that. In a budget, How important is art versus music versus athletics versus computer programming? At the end of the day, some of those trade-offs will be made politically. Innovation is a good thing. The human condition, put aside bioterrorism and a few footnotes, is improving because of innovation. Bill Gates. Well, private money can take risks in a way that government money often isn't willing to. People don't want lots and lots of single-purpose devices. They do not want to have to learn how to set up something for photos, another thing for music, another thing for video. Maintaining a consistent platform also helps improve product support, a significant problem in the software industry. Effective philanthropy requires a lot of time and creativity, the same kind of focus and skills that building a business requires. You know, capitalism is this wonderful thing that motivates people, it causes wonderful inventions to be done. But in this area of diseases of the world at large, it's really let us down. Even with cameras being very cheap, one thing that researchers noticed was that you look really bad in a video conference image because the lighting is bad and you get shadows and things. Oh, I think there are a lot of people who would be buying and selling online today that go up there and they get the information, but then when it comes time to type in their credit card they think twice because they're not sure about how that might get out and what that might mean for them. One thing I've always loved about the culture at Microsoft is there is nobody who is tougher on us, in terms of what we need to learn and do better, than the people in the company itself. You can walk down these halls, and they'll tell you, we need to do usability better, push this or that frontier. Bill Gates. I actually thought that it would be a little confusing during the same period of your life to be in one meeting when you're trying to make money, and then go to another meeting where you're giving it away. I mean, is it gonna erode your ability, to make money? Are you gonna somehow get confused about what you're trying to do? I understand how every healthy child, every new road, puts a country on a better path, but instability and war will arise from time to time, and I'm not an expert on how you get out of those things. By 2018, an estimated 63% of all new U.S. jobs will require workers with an education beyond high school. For our young people to get those jobs, they first need to graduate from high school ready to start a post-secondary education. Bill Gates. My experience of malaria was just taking anti-malarials, which give you strange dreams, because I don't want to get malaria. Bill Gates.